Now, you might think that learning a language with stories is a kind of cute gimmick, but you'd be wrong. In fact, there are 16 reasons why you should use stories for your language learning. And the first reason is because of this. Now, have you ever seen a caveman drawing? I'm sure you have. Without even knowing one word of how these guys spoke, we've learned so much about how they thought. And humans have always communicated best through stories, haven't we? In fact, stories are the heart of all communication. Every time you write something meaningful on Facebook or describe your day on the phone, you're doing it too. Stories are how we as people make sense of the world. So by learning through stories, you give yourself a big head start because the framework of a story is something you already understand. So you're not starting your language learning from scratch. And this will lead naturally to number 2, which is that stories let you enjoy your learning. Now, be honest now, which do you love more? Sitting in a classroom staring at a textbook, or sitting on the sofa with a cup of coffee getting lost in a page turner? See, the magic of story, whether truth or fiction, is that a story grabs your attention and captivates you. If you are happy and relaxed, you're more likely to learn than if you're bored or anxious. Hey, this is science. Your emotional state affects your learning. And by the way, if you're new here, my name is Ollie Richards, and this channel is all about helping you learn a new language quickly using the power of story so you can become fluent faster and live your best life. And stay to the end of the video because I'm going to tell you how you can get a free story learning kit that will really help you become fluent faster in the language that you're learning. Now, speaking of fluency, number 3 is good for that. And it is that stories help you build your vocabulary fast. Why? Well, firstly, you get exposure to a huge number of words. Think about it. A book has thousands of words in it, and the useful ones will keep showing up again and again and again. That's some really hardcore, raw exposure to your target language right there. Not only that, but vocabulary in a story is always in context, so it's more meaningful and memorable, which leads us to number 4, which is that stories give you language in context. Every word, every phrase, every preposition, every verb in a story, it's all in context. And so that means that you learn which words go naturally together with other words, and not a grammar rule in sight telling you so. But now let's get to the heart of it, which is number 5, which is that stories can unleash your motivation. And man, you really need this one. Your motivation to learn this new language is ultimately the one thing that will determine your success. It's kind of scary to think how important it is. When people pick up a new language and then fizzle out after a few weeks, it's not because the language is hard, it's just that the novelty wears off. You ever been there? Let me know in the comments if you've ever fizzled out on a new language project before. That's that. But now, try dealing with your favorite TV series being cancelled right after a cliffhanger. Would you put up with that? You would not. Not cool. Not cool at all. A great story with plot twists and a bit of whodunit in there. That is all it takes to keep you desperate for the next page in the story. And if you've picked up anything useful from this video so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I also like to give away language learning books and things like that from time to time. So turn on notifications as well to make sure you hear about those giveaways. Now, this next one is insane, which is that stories and learning with stories can actually change your brain chemistry. And this is true. Your physiology changes when you follow a story and really connect with the characters. Why else is it, think about it, that you cry during a sad movie? It's because on some level, you share their pain. Stories engage your whole brain while listening or reading. So when you're learning a language, this is a way to kick your memory into some serious action. And that's why number 7 is so true, which is that this method has been tried and tested through time. Words, phrases, pronunciation, grammar structure. It's all kind of boring, right? But try interlacing these things with characters, illustrations, and make-believe worlds. Remember being read to when you had stories read to you as a little kid? Stories are the universal method of teaching children their mother tongue. It's not that kids learn languages the same way as adults do. I know that it's different, but clearly every kid in the world has learned at least one language just by hearing it and reading it. So this sounds like a pretty reliable principle, at least to me. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Your opinion really matters to me, so let me know what you think. When you read your kid a bedtime story, you may think that you're just putting them to sleep, but there's actually major passive learning going on. You were that kid once. You can do it again. But the best part is that stories work for beginners. But how? Okay, I want you to think about something. Think of the most memorable TV adverts from your childhood. Have you got one in mind? Well, go and look it up on YouTube. And when you watch it, notice the simplicity of the language. Think how easy it would be for a beginner to learn something like that. The language is straightforward, The imagery is powerful, the message is clear, and the story is unforgettable. Simple stories are powerful at any level. Why else do you still remember these TV ads 30 years on? But the flip side of that is here in number 9, which is that in a story, you will learn 10 times more than speaking. Did you know that people use only 10% of their vocabulary in everyday speech? Think about it. What does that mean if you're learning a new language only by listening or speaking with people? Well, I'll tell you, if you do that, you're unlikely to ever hear 90% of the words in that person's vocabulary. But when reading a story, you get to see high quality, well-written language, more words, better grammar. So you end up with a much higher level of literacy in the language. Let's be honest now, even us English speakers don't always speak with good grammar, do we? Let's explore this in number 10, which is that you can uncover grammar from a story. Have you ever noticed, I'm sure you have, that grammar rules can be kind of hard to remember, especially the complicated ones? My friend, you are definitely not the only one here. And even once you think you've kind of gotten a rule in your head, try using it on the spot in the middle of a conversation. It's not that easy. So I love stories for learning grammar because you're observing grammar naturally, and then over time you simply get used to how it's used. But let's look at number 11, which is that stories are the ideal format for studying. Let's say that you're learning Russian, so you go and hang out with some Russians. Do you think they'll love it if you keep asking them to repeat what they said? Can you say that again? Can you repeat that, please? How about if you're invited to watch a Russian movie and you keep wanting to rewind it? Well, it's really annoying, isn't it? But unlike movies and speaking with people, stories come in an ideal format for studying. Just get hold of an audiobook and you'll be able to read what you hear and hear what you read. It is great for memory, great for listening skills. My books, for example, that I just showed you, they all come with audio, and you can click here to check them out as well. Okay, now remember high school? Your high school language lessons? You do, I know you do. If your teachers were less than inspiring, then this next one will be satisfying, which is that reverse your conditioning from school. Yes, a Pink Floyd song comes to mind. An unhealthy obsession with rules and accuracy at all times, no mistakes, is the enemy of learning, and something you need to rip right out of your brain as soon as you can. My advice here, lose a bit of control. Focus on understanding and taking pleasure from the story. Rule number 9 of story learning is focus on the plot. If you ever experienced this, learned something better once you kind of relax the rules a little bit, let me know in the comments. And keep watching as well, because I still have 4 fantastic reasons to learn a language through stories. These just keep on coming. Number 13 is that the unlimited resources. Really, you will never run out of resources if you're using stories as the foundation of your learning. The internet really is your magic kingdom, and you can access anything a native speaker in their own country can access. I mean, you can even start with children's stories if you want, although I don't usually recommend it. I'll explain why in another video, but there's tons of them online. There really isn't an excuse not to be immersed in the target language. So, get hunting, and don't go thinking that story learning is just for beginners either, because you can use this method all the way to fluency. All you need to do is choose stories that are slightly above your current level. Not too easy, not too hard, so that you're being pushed without being overwhelmed. And if you want some of my recommendations for good books and podcasts and things for your language learning, click the links in the description below. I made a big list of the most useful books for language learners right there. So are you excited yet about learning a language with stories? I hope you are. Here is another good reason to have a go at it. With stories, you get access to native speaker content. Now, if you've fallen in love with the language that you're learning, then one of your goals is most likely to be able to live and breathe the culture too, right? So this is cool. You're training yourself to cope with authentic material in the language, things intended for native speakers. I mean, things like famous novels, insanely good opera, like whatever turns you on. For me, it's listening to jazz or some music from a country like bossa nova from Brazil that really kind of gets you. And once you understand the words, so it's just next level. Now look, I have one more point to share about stories, and it's more like advice, which is this. There's no need to speak to anybody. Well, not yet, at least. See, there's this annoying little guy called the fear villain. And until you feel ready to vanquish him, it's okay not to be speaking at the beginning. Speaking for a lot of people, it's their goal, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's not necessary. And if you get nervous about speaking, if you suffer from some kind of social anxiety, for example, which is very common, then by learning languages with stories, you get to push this into the long grass, and you don't have to kind of push yourself through this turmoil of forcing yourself to speak to people when you're not ready. It's okay. Read your stories, listen to the audio, let new words sink in, let grammar structures gradually take shape in your mind. Remember, a lot of kids don't start speaking until they're 4 years old. And then one day they just kind of start blurting out all this stuff that they've been soaking up for years. You could be that kid if you allow yourself to be. But look, if you want to get serious about learning with stories, then you should check this out. It's my famous story learning kit, and it's completely free. And you're going to get a bunch of goodies that are going to show you how to start learning a language with stories. An important 6-step process you need to follow, how to double your memory for new vocabulary, a helpful planning worksheet that you can print out to help you get more consistent with your reading. It's all free, so just click the link over here to get started.